Jump right in. How does an idea that starts with freedom, unity, and brotherhood end up causing some of the worst conflicts in history? That's what we're looking at today. We're going to trace how nationalism, one of the most powerful ideas ever, completely reshaped Europe in just about a century, turning a beautiful dream into an absolute disaster. So, it all kicks off with this amazing picture from 1848. An artist named Frederick Soriot had this utopian vision of the future. I mean, just look at it. You've got people from all over Europe and America marching together right past the Statue of Liberty. They're not subjects of a king, they're citizens of their own nations, all living in a world of democratic and social republics. This was the original dream. So, here's the billion-dollar question, right? How did that vision of peace and unity lead directly to the trenches of World War I? It seems impossible. Well, that's the story we're going to unravel. To figure out where it all went wrong, you've got to understand the idea in its purest form. It really got its start with the French Revolution back in 1789. That's when this radical new thought emerged. A country isn't its king or its government. The people are the nation. The philosopher Ernst Renan just nailed it with this quote. He said, "A nation is a daily plebiscite." Now, that's a fancy term, but what it really means is that a nation isn't just about sharing a language or living in the same place. It's an active choice. It's the people deciding every single day that they want to be a community, that they want to stick together. And this idea, this way of thinking, it had a name: liberal nationalism. For the educated middle classes popping up all over Europe, this was everything. They believed that to be a real nation, you had to have a government chosen by the people, a constitution to protect their rights, and basic individual freedoms. For them, nationalism and democracy were basically two sides of the same coin. And this wasn't just some theory they talked about at universities. This idea of liberal nationalism absolutely caught fire across Europe and led to a whole series of revolutions. You can just see the momentum building, can't you? After that initial spark in 1789, another revolution in France in 1830 lit smaller fires everywhere. But 1848, wow. 1848 was the main event. All across the continent, liberals were rising up, demanding their own unified nations and their own constitutions. And this right here, this was the peak, the high point of that whole movement. In Frankfurt, Germany, 831 elected representatives, businessmen, lawyers, artists, all got together in a church to try and create a unified Germany. Not with an army, but with debate and a constitution. It was the liberal dream made real. But, well, the dream didn't last. The old guard, the kings, the aristocrats, the military, they fought back, and they had something the liberals didn't: guns and armies. So, as these revolutions failed, the idea of nationalism didn't die. Oh no, it got picked up by the very people who crushed the dream, and they twisted it into something totally new. This chart just lays it out perfectly. You had two completely different visions. The liberals in 1848 wanted to build a nation from the bottom up, powered by the people. But the conservatives in places like Prussia, they had a different idea. Their goal wasn't a nation for the people, it was about using the idea of a nation to make the state more powerful. It was a top-down project, built with the monarchy and the military they already controlled. And a master of this new game was Prussia's chief minister, Otto von Bismarck. He wasn't interested in speeches or constitutions. He famously said Germany would be united by iron and blood, and he meant it. He launched 3 short, decisive wars. And in 1871, when the German Empire was finally declared, it wasn't in a people's parliament. It was at the Palace of Versailles in front of an assembly of princes and generals. So, this is the big shift. Nationalism was no longer about freeing people. It had become a weapon for state power. And this change, well, it was going to have some deadly consequences. I mean, you don't need words when you have a picture like this. The Germania on the left from 1848, she's hopeful, right? She's holding the flag of the liberal dream. But look at the one from just a decade later. She's aggressive. She's holding a sword. Her focus isn't unity anymore. It's conflict. The entire vibe had changed. By the end of the 1800s, the transformation was pretty much complete. Nationalism wasn't about citizens choosing to be together anymore. It became this narrow, aggressive idea. It meant being loyal to your state, often by being hostile to other states. Nations became intolerant of each other, constantly competing and ready to go to war. And the place where this new, dangerous nationalism was set to explode was the Balkans. You see, the Ottoman Empire was falling apart, and all the different ethnic groups that it used to rule, Serbs, Bulgarians, Greeks, you name it, were all fighting for their own independence. It was a total powder keg of competing national dreams. And if that wasn't complicated enough, you had the great powers of Europe, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, all meddling in the region. They saw the Balkans as this giant chessboard for their own imperial games. Each one backed different groups, trying to gain influence and block their rivals. So suddenly, a small local conflict could easily turn into a massive European crisis. And that brings us to the tragic bottom line. This new brand of nationalism, when you mix it with the cutthroat competition of imperialism, it created this toxic cocktail that led Europe straight into the disaster of 1914. So think about that journey. In less than 70 years, we go from Soryu's beautiful dream of a peaceful family of nations in 1848 to the hard reality of 1914, a continent armed to the teeth, split into hostile alliances, and about to fall into the deadliest war the world had ever seen. The dream of unity had become an absolute nightmare of division. Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty heavy question for today. Because this idea, nationalism, it's obviously still here. It's still incredibly powerful. So looking back at this story, we have to ask ourselves, what's the line between the nationalism that unites and liberates and the kind that divides and destroys? And maybe more importantly, how do we make sure we stay on the right side of that